What's the difference between fasting and just eating less? I'm going to talk about that in this video, and I'm going to talk about things in a little different way, something you may not have heard before. With intermittent fasting, it's nothing to do with the amount of calories that you're eating, it's all about the time that you're eating. So for example, you will have a window where you may eat between 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. and then all the rest of the times during the day, so from 8 p.m. to when you go to bed at night, and when you wake up in the morning up until 12 p.m, you're fasted, you're not eating any calories. Eating less calories is where you purposely put yourself in a calorie deficit, usually to lose body fat. So you're choosing to eat less calories to get a certain outcome. The first thing that springs to mind is that when you're restricting calories, you often feel very hungry, and when you're fasting, you can fast for days without even being hungry at all. And the reason this happens is because every time you eat, you spike insulin levels. This also means that your body is then releasing more of the hunger hormone, ghrelin. When this happens, that's the feeling that you get when you're hungry, that rumbling feeling in your stomach. Your body is telling you that you don't have enough calories. It's trying to warn you to eat more. That's just a survival mechanism telling your body to do a certain thing. When you're fasting, you don't have that because your insulin levels are so low and you don't have any spikes in blood sugar throughout the day because you're not eating anything. That means your hunger is just going to be low all the way throughout the day. If you're enjoying this video so far, just click the like button. It only takes a second and it's something that does help the channel out, so I would appreciate that. With calorie restriction, I can speak from personal experience because I've got lean many times throughout my life at different periods. And some of the side effects of restricting calories are going to be you're going to feel more tired, you're going to have less passion, less drive to do things, you're going to have less sex drive, you're going to feel cold more of the time. Also from a fitness standpoint, you're definitely going to see a reduction in strength. You're not going to feel as strong as you would when you're eating more calories. And it's also very possible that you'll lose muscle mass if you're restricting calories for too long. If you're wondering why you lose muscle in a calorie deficit, the reason is because of gluconeogenesis.
Listen, you little wiseacre. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong. And there's nothing you can do about it.
And that's really simple. It's basically that when your body's run out of fat to burn and it doesn't have the calories to burn, it will start to break down your muscle tissue into glucose, which is called gluconeogenesis. So that's how that process works. It's not a process that the body wants to do, and it is a last resort. Now with fasting, you won't experience tiredness, although you may experience tiredness in the first week or two whilst you're getting fat adapted. But what you'll experience is actually more energy. And the reason is because you're using the sympathetic nervous system while you're fasting. That's the nervous system that makes you feel more alert, makes you have more energy. And the reason you're in that state is because your body wants food. Even though you're not hungry, your body is in search of food. Your body doesn't realize that you're fasting because you want to fast. It thinks that you're fasting because you don't have access to calories, and to catch calories, to hunt for food, even to pick plants and crops and things like that, you need energy to do that. You need to be alert, and that is why you're in that state. Another thing that you don't get when you're fasting is you won't have a decrease in testosterone levels, which means you're going to have more energy. It means your sex drive's still going to be there. It means you're not going to be tired all the time. And that's one of the really negative side effects of eating in a calorie deficit. Also with fasting, you'll experience more autophagy, which is basically the removal of cellular waste. You'll also have more longevity and less chance of things like cancer. One of the benefits I love most about intermittent fasting is the lack of inflammation that you get. When you're constantly eating food all of the time, your body's never getting that rest period, and oftentimes you don't eat the best types of food. You get inflammation, you're sore, you have maybe your back's hurting a little bit. With fasting, I don't get any of that. Because I have less inflammation in my body, that means I'm going to have less aches and pains. Another thing that I want to clear up is intermittent fasting is not starving. People often say, I'm not starving myself, I'm not doing that. You're not starving because you're not hungry. When you're intermittent fasting, you become fat adapted, which means you are burning body fat as energy. So opposed to eating calories for energy, even though of course you still are eating calories, in that period you're burning body fat. Starving is when you've actually run out of fat, so you don't have any more fat to burn, so your body starts breaking muscle down. It even starts breaking things like organs down in extreme cases. If you did forget to like the video, then now's your chance, so don't forget to do that. And don't forget as well, right at the end, I'm going to talk about how you can use calorie restriction and intermittent fasting, or what you should actually do, which one you should do. The longer a fast goes, the less hungry you will be. And the reason is, yes, like we said before, because of the insulin. But also a thing to note is first thing in the morning is when your ghrelin levels are lowest. Just everybody's genetically are lowest in the morning. Now, one thing that I would say, and this is my personal experience, I remember when I started fasting, I was 16 years old, I was still in school. And when I started trying it for the first 1 or 2 weeks, I remember it very well. I was actually starving, and that was because my body, as is the same for your body, can remember when to expect food. The first few weeks can be difficult, and what I mean by that is when I would wake up in the morning, the first thing I used to do for the previous 16 years is go downstairs and get some big bowl of chocolate cereal, and like any true good Brit does, we also go downstairs and get a nice cup of tea. But I'd also go and put 3 sugars in that cup of tea. So not only is that just wrong on so many levels with the type of food that I was eating in the morning, I trained myself to expect that food at that time. It was the first thing I did. So the first few weeks of fasting for me, I was hungry, I was starving the first thing I woke up in the morning because I'd trained my body to get food at that time. After a few weeks, my body no longer expected food at that time, and then I'm not hungry in the morning. Let's now talk about what I promised we would talk about, which is what should you actually do? And it really depends on your goal. If your goal is just to be more healthy and maybe lose a few pounds, but you're not really that interested in losing body fat, then fast. I recommend fasting. If your goal is to lose body fat and that is your primary goal, I recommend both. Do intermittent fasting and calorie restriction. As you'll remember from what I said at the start of the video, calorie restriction does have so many negative side effects. If you are overweight or obese, then these side effects are nowhere near as bad, and sometimes you won't experience them at all because you have so much body fat to lose. But if you're already not really overweight, you just want to lose a few extra pounds, you will start to experience a lot of these things the leaner you get. But if you use both together, that's the optimal position to be in, because you're getting all the benefits from intermittent fasting, but also if you want to lose body fat, you do have to restrict calories. You have to eat in a calorie deficit. If you want to know how to eat in a calorie deficit, I recommend taking your body weight in pounds multiplied by 10 to 12. Anywhere in that range is going to help you eat in a calorie deficit, but you must remember you do have to increase your calories again at some point. So 6 to 8 weeks of eating in that calorie deficit is good, but you will have to increase those calories again. You cannot restrict calories forever. With fasting, you're going to get a small increase in your metabolism, even though people actually think you get a decrease in metabolism. That's been disproven in many studies before. And with calorie restriction, you do get a decrease in metabolism. So that sort of balances itself out. But of course, if you eat in a calorie deficit for too long, you'll still see your metabolism slow down. That is inevitable. One of the reasons I love combining the two is because you'll lose less muscle mass. When you're fasting, you have an increase in growth hormone, which is going to spare muscle tissue, which means you're not going to lose as much muscle as you would if you was just restricting calories. Another thing that people want to know is, what's the difference between time-restricted eating and the difference between intermittent fasting and the difference between just eating less calories? Time-restricted eating is a form of intermittent fasting. It's basically just narrowing down a certain window that you want to eat your calories in. It's all about meal timing, basically. So the time of day that you choose to eat your meals and what impact that may have. The video that you're going to want to watch next is a video that I have on screen right now, and it's some of the intermittent fasting drinks that you can have, and it's going to make sure that you're not drinking the wrong things and breaking your fast.